Now on today, the topic is distractions. Distractions. And you know, there are many distractions in the world. Just to say a few, there are internal distractions and then there are external distractions. Some internal distractions may be wandering thoughts, daydreams, planning for the future, or possibly replaying past events. It could also be emotional states, such as stress, anxiety, boredom, or excitement that pulls us away from our focus. There are also, and this is still talking about internal, there are also biological factors. Fatigue, hunger. How many can identify when you're hungry, sometimes you can't focus? Or discomfort. So for me, discomfort is if I'm too cold, it kind of disrupts my thinking, especially if it's my feet. So I'll go put on a pair of socks. And lastly, and these are just a few, checking your phone during a meeting or during a session that you're supposed to be paying attention to. Now, those are just examples of internal. Then we have external distractions, which can include noise and visual stimuli, such as loud conversations, construction sounds, bright lights, or cluttered environments. Now, you know, somebody might say, well, bright lights, how is that a distraction? Well, I can tell you from personal experience. My husband can go to sleep real quick with the TV on. Don't bother him. I can have my eyelids closed and I can see the lights doing that. And that will keep me from going to sleep. So that's a distraction for me. So we don't go to bed with the TV on. There's also digital interruptions, such as smartphone notifications, email alerts, or social media pings. And that could come through on your phone, or if you got a watch, just sounds. You might be doing something. You might be in the middle of a good thought. You might be writing something, a paper. And all of a sudden you hear ding, and that thought is gone. Like, what in the world was I getting right? Lord, that was a good thought too. It could also come through physical interruptions, such as people walking by, office chatter, or unexpected visitors. Now, maybe none of these, maybe you can't identify with any of those, but I'm sure at some point in your life, and in all of our lives, we can say that we have encountered distractions, correct? Okay. So what is a distraction? A distraction is anything that takes our mind off of what we're supposed to be doing. A distraction can take place in a very short period of time, or it can be something that keeps coming back repeatedly. Distractions can keep us from being successful with our lives. So let me just give you an example, because I like to tell stories. Now, I'm not a sports fan, so if I get the facts wrong, please overlook that. But imagine you're at a basketball game. And imagine there's 10 seconds left. And imagine you're the one who's been fouled, F-O-U-L-E-D. I probably ain't saying that right. So you're coming up to the line where you can make the shot. Say your team is only 2 points behind. So you know that these foul shots are important if you make them. So there's an audience or stadium or wherever you are, gym, full of people. Some are for your team, some are for the opposing team. Now, how reasonable would it be for you to say as you're walking up to the line and whisper to the referee or coach or whatever they call. Can you tell everybody to be quiet so I can focus? You think that would happen? In fact, I can pretty much guarantee that somebody is going to try to distract you. They might call your name, or they might call you out of your name. They might boo you. Boo! Oh, I woke you up, didn't I, girl? Or, depending on where you are, they might have some little sticks and start flagging. But it's all to be a distraction so that you don't focus on making that shot. That's what the enemy does, y'all. He gives us distractions. Now, I believe everybody, or most of us, want to do the right thing. Most of the time. Don't raise your hands. However, distractions can arise and sometimes cause us to come close to doing what's right. How many of you have come close to doing what's right? I think every one of us can say that. So, let me give you another example. I like examples. Suppose I asked Mother to lend me $50. And Mother got the money. She lends it to me. Do you think Mother would want me to almost give it back? Come close, think about it, and then change my mind? Or do you think she want it all back? Same thing if somebody lent you an outfit or an electronic device, and you promised that you were going to give it back within a certain period of time. Would you want them to almost think about giving it back? Would you want it in the same condition that you got it in? So if you gave it to them clean, you'd want it back clean. If you gave it to them and it won't broke, you wanted it back not broken. Okay, I'm just making some points. Satan doesn't mind if we almost do the right thing, y'all. He don't mind if we come close. He just don't want us to do the right thing. All right, let me share another story. Now, I might not be getting it perfect again, but I'm going on memory. This is a story that I heard Pastor George Pearson's share. Now, he said that at this time he was a teenager, and his grandfather had this car, and I don't know if it was, what do you call them cars when they old but they valuable? It might have been an antique, it might not. But anyhow, he had this car. Thank you. And his grandfather let him drive the car. But his job was, at this particular day, was to put it into the garage or the shed. I don't know which one it was, but he was supposed to put it in there. Pastor George started off fine. Then he looked down the street and he saw two pretty girls. What you think happened? He got distracted. And the car ran right into the edge of the shed or the garage. He said his grandfather was so upset. He said he never saw his grandfather run before. He said his grandfather was coming towards him saying, "Stupid, stupid, stupid, stupid." Y'all, that's what the devil says to us. He calls us stupid when we almost do the right thing and when we get distracted. Okay. Point to yourself and say, self, what is keeping you from doing the right thing. Now, another example of a distraction would be a bullfighter. And I don't even know if they might do that still in some countries. But when I was younger, they used to have it on television a lot where they would have bullfighting. And you know, the matador, thank you, he would get the red cape and he'd do that. But his thought was to distract the bull so that he could pierce in between the shoulder blades with the blade, with the sword. So the cape was a distraction. The bull was going after the cape, but his problem was the man holding the sword. He wasn't even paying attention to that. He was. How many of us, don't answer, have gotten distracted by something and then as a result was harmed because we did so? Now, we're going to go to the Bible. I just want to give y'all some examples. Let's talk about a man named Saul. Saul had a problem throughout his life handling distractions. He was chosen to become king of Israel, and God began to use him in great ways. His first battle as king involved coming against the Ammonites. And Saul led the people into battle, and God gave them a great victory. Now, you know, sometimes after we have a victory, we get big-headed. And we forget it was God who brought us through. Some kind of way we start thinking, oh, that was me, that was my strength, that was my this, that was my that. My education, because of who I knew, my friends, they hooked me up, not realizing it was God. I believe that's what happened with Saul. He began to think more highly of himself than he ought to have. So after they won that battle, the people were convinced that Saul was a wonderful choice to be their king. Now, mind you, before that, God was their king. But they wanted to be, the Israelites wanted to be like other nations, and they wanted a man to be their king. At some point, Saul felt like, since he had won some battles, got some victories under his belt, that the Israelites were in a place where they could take on the big boys, the Philistines. And this is found in 1 Samuel 13, and I'm not going to read it because it's the whole chapter. So if you want to read it and get familiar with it, you can read it. 1 Samuel 13, chapters 13 through 15. But anyhow, Samuel gave his army, the Israelites, some commands once they decided that they were going to fight the Philistines. And once the Philistines heard about the attack, they began to gather their army at a place called Mishmash. Saul called for the men of Israel to come out and prepare for battle by meeting him at Gilgal, which is where they had crowned him king. Now, the men of Israel, the army of Israel, Saul's army, almost chose to do the right thing. They came out in force to stand with their king. So they met him where he asked them to meet him. They did that. And, you know, they probably felt like, you know, we got this. We big, we bad, we just had these victories. We can do this. Like some of us sometimes. And you know, it's easy to get overconfident when you're in a crowd. It's also easier sometimes to handle distractions when you have someone that's close to you that's going to help hold you accountable and let you know when you're doing something wrong. But Satan knows that when he can get us by ourselves, or when he can get us with the wrong group of people, we're going to mess up and we're going to make bad choices. Our parents, our pastors, our guardians, our peers, and friends will not always be there with us in person when we need to say no to certain people or things. But we have to remember that God is always with us. And because he's with us, if we depend on him and if we ask him and obey him, he'll give us strength to say no and to overcome that temptation. Now, let's revisit the story of Saul. As I said before, the soldiers came out. They met Saul for battle when asked. They had done the right thing by showing up for battle. But once they got on the battlefield, they looked and they saw that the Philistines had 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and so many armed soldiers that you could not count them all. What do you think happened to the Israelites when they saw this huge army? They got scared. Fear came into their hearts. And guess what? It came so much so until some of them hid, some of them ran away. It says that some of them went into caves, they went into the woods, they hid behind rocks. Some of them even went into wells in the ground so that they couldn't be found when the battle started. Now, King Saul watched this. He watched his army shrink day by day. He watched them shrink back in fear. The soldiers who ran away became distracted by the Philistine army. But Saul became distracted by the soldiers who ran away. Now, the prophet Samuel had already told Saul to go down and wait for him for 7 days so that Samuel, who is the prophet, could make a sacrifice so that they can ensure that the Israelites would win the battle. So, day 1, day 2, day 3, Samuel didn't show up. More and more soldiers left. Saul started freaking out. Lord, can you imagine his army started out as a big number and now he's down to half? Day 4, day 5, day 6. No prophet Samuel. Where in the world is this prophet? He said he was coming. Now remember, he said, wait 7 days. Still no Samuel. Now he's down to maybe a third of his army. Now, in the meantime, the Philistines could have attacked, but they were just taunting. Day 7 comes. Saul really starting to lose it. Where is the prophet? And I'm making, this is my own words now. Where in the world is that prophet, Samuel? He said to wait for him 7 days. Now, this is day 7. He still ain't here. I got to come up with an alternative plan. Okay, since the sacrifice was supposed to be made and the prophet ain't here to do it, I'm going to do it. Now, mind you, only the priests were supposed to make sacrifice. So Saul was not qualified. So Saul goes and makes the sacrifice. And not long after he makes it, guess who shows up? Prophet Samuel. And what does Samuel say? He says, and this is my words, "What have you done, Saul? Didn't I tell you to wait 7 days so that I could come down and do this, make this sacrifice so the Lord will be on our side, Israel's side, and so y'all can win the battle? But what have you done?" What do you think Saul started doing? Making excuses, you got it. Making excuses. I was going to, but you didn't come when you said. I waited 7 days. But see, the thing is, he waited 7 days, but he didn't wait through the whole 7th day. Do y'all realize sometimes we're so close to our blessing, and then we mess up by being disobedient? We mess up by giving up, throwing in the towel. We can be that close to God manifesting the answer that we've been praying for. So, as a result, well, let me back up. Let me ask you a question. Don't answer it. What do you think you would have done if you were Saul? Do you think that you would have continued to trust God? Do you think you would have taken matters into your own hands? Or do you think you would have had to come up with a backup plan? Don't answer that. What was a little distraction had now become something big, to the point where it caused Saul to disobey God. See, the thing is this. Yes, Saul saw his army leaving. He saw the army shrinking. And he focused on that instead of focusing on the fact that even though the Philistines had all of this big army, they never attacked. They didn't do what they could have overtaken them, but they just was there. How many of us get sidetracked because of what we see in the natural instead of standing on the eternal, which is God's word? Saul didn't see that even though several of his men had left, that there were still some men that were standing by his side that were willing to die in battle beside him. He didn't see none of that. He just saw the negative. Say, self, get your eyes off the negative and get it on God. You know, some of us, we just complainers. We have, if I could say it like this, we have earned a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in worrying and murmuring and complaining. We're not grateful for what God has blessed us with. We don't realize that even though we don't live in a mansion, we got decent housing. We don't realize that even though we may not be wearing name brand this and that, we got clothes. We may not be eating steak and potatoes every day, but we got some food. Do y'all know hot dogs and pork and beans make just as good a meal as steak and potatoes? I opened me a can the other day, and it was some kind of good to me. And it won't that I didn't have other food. Now, granted, I didn't want to cook it. But I had a hanking and a hunger for hot dogs and pork and beans. I cut me up 4 hot dogs, opened me a can of pork and beans, and ate every bit of it. And it was some kind of good. So we have to learn to be thankful. You may be on the team, whether it's a sports team, basketball, baseball, whatever, and you may not be the main person. If it's football, what is it? Quarterback. Am I right? But you're on the team. So, you know, if they win the championship, everybody gets a reward. Everybody, the whole team gets credit, not just that one person. So now think about this for a moment. People thought God wasn't doing anything when Jesus was hanging on the cross. As he suffered, as he bled, as he took those stripes, people watching may have said, God ain't doing nothing. When they put him in the tomb and sealed it, they may have thought, God ain't doing nothing. But God allowed it, and Jesus laid down his life to show his love for humanity. In other words, just like John 3:16 said, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Because Jesus paid the price of sin, which is death, you and I don't have to pay that price. So while people thought God wasn't doing anything, God did all of this because he had you and me in mind. All right, say this. Whatever the distraction is, if I go after it, I'm going to lose what God has for me. Remember, Saul almost waited long enough for Samuel to arrive. Saul had waited the 7 days, but he had not waited through the seventh day. Saul made excuses and basically told Samuel that he had almost waited for him to arrive. But when he continued to see his men running away in fear, he had to come up with a backup plan. I was worried the Philistine army would attack us before we had a chance to offer sacrifice to God. Since I wanted God to be on our side and give us favor, I felt like I had no other choice but to offer a burnt sacrifice. Something just came over me. I really didn't see it any other way. Now, these are things that he could have said. But say this behind me. There is never a right way to do wrong. Saul's disobedience cost him more than he could ever dream of. Father God does not come down from heaven and tell us that the decision or the distractions that we're running after may alter our entire lives, and also it may cause others who are watching us to fall and stumble. He doesn't come down from heaven. He doesn't reach his hand down and say, hey, stop that. He doesn't do that. But he talks to us in our inner man. You hear that little voice? Sometimes he talks to us through a person, a friend. So we have to get to the point where we're sensitive to his voice, regardless of who he's using. Sometimes he talks to a spouse. So in my closing, where are you today? Where are we today? What distraction is worth missing heaven for? What distractions are causing us to become stumbling blocks to those who are watching us? Are we truly surrendering our lives to Jesus? Or are we running after distractions? Every decision that you and I will make today will affect our tomorrow. Say that behind me. Every decision that I make today will affect my tomorrow. So I need to choose wisely so I don't allow distractions to derail God's plan for my life.
I am free. Praise the Lord. I'm free. No longer bound.